Look at this tiny red dot on the map of Asia. Blink, and you would completely miss it. This is Singapore, one of the smallest countries on the entire planet, smaller than most cities you have heard of. It has no oil, no gas, no farmland worth mentioning, barely any natural resources at all. It is so small and so bare that it does not even have enough fresh drinking water for its own people, and for years had to buy water from its neighbor. Just 60 years ago, it was a poor, overcrowded place full of slums and open sewers, and almost everyone in the world expected it to fail. Today, that exact same tiny island is one of the richest places on the face of the earth. By one key measure of wealth, the average person in Singapore is now richer than the average American or the average Briton. So how on earth did a tiny island with absolutely nothing become richer than the very countries that once ruled over it? This is, without exaggeration, one of the greatest rags-to-riches stories in all of human history. And here is the most important part. It did not happen by luck or by accident. It happened by design, step by careful step. To truly understand the miracle, you first have to go back and understand the disaster it came from. So let's rewind the clock all the way back to the year 1965. Back then, Singapore was not even its own country. It was just a small part of its much larger neighbor, Malaysia. But the two sides did not get along at all. There were deep disagreements over politics, money, and race, and it all ended in a painful divorce. And it was not even Singapore's choice. Malaysia actually kicked Singapore out, forcing it to become independent whether it wanted to or not. Singapore's own leader went on live television to announce it, and in front of the whole nation, he broke down and cried. And you can understand why. Because on paper, this brand new little country looked completely and utterly doomed. It had no real army to defend itself against anyone. It had no natural resources of its own to dig up and sell to the world. It was a tiny, crowded, squeezed in and surrounded by much bigger, stronger, and sometimes hostile neighbors. Most experts around the world took one look and simply assumed it would collapse or be swallowed up within a few short years. But Singapore had one thing that would end up changing absolutely everything. A leader with an iron will and a ruthless plan. His name was Kuan Yew, and he had a bold vision to drag his tiny, broke country from poverty all the way to wealth. And the very first part of his plan was something that was already written into the map itself. Because while Singapore had no resources buried under the ground, it did have something that turned out to be almost as valuable: its location. Just look at where it sits, right at the mouth of the Strait of Malacca. This narrow stretch of water is one of the busiest and most important shipping routes on the entire planet. A huge share of everything traded between Asia and the rest of the world, oil, goods, food, has to sail right past Singapore's front door. Kuan Yew looked at all of those thousands of ships passing by every year, and where others saw water, he saw pure opportunity. So Singapore poured everything it had into building one of the biggest, most modern, and most efficient ports in the entire world. And it worked. Ships from everywhere began stopping there to refuel, to repair, to unload and reload, and to trade. The little island turned itself into a giant gateway, a meeting point between the East and the West. But a great location, on its own, was only ever going to be the beginning. Because Kuan Yew was aiming much higher. He wanted to attract the biggest and richest companies in the whole world to set up shop on his island. And to do that, he made a decision. He would make Singapore completely irresistible to foreign business. He set out to make it safe, stable, predictable, and famously, almost impossibly, free of corruption. He cracked down on corruption so hard and punished it so severely that Singapore went on to become one of the cleanest governments anywhere on earth. He kept taxes low and deliberately kept the rules simple and fast for any company that wanted to set up shop. And crucially, he made sure most Singaporeans spoke English, the common language of global business and trade. Put it all together, and for a giant multinational company, Singapore became the perfect, safe, easy base to run their entire Asian operation from. Banks, oil traders, shipping firms, and tech giants all rushed in to set up their Asian headquarters there. And with them came exactly what Singapore needed: foreign money and good jobs, pouring onto the tiny island. But Kuan Yew understood something that many leaders miss. Money, all by itself, was still not enough. His greatest resource, he decided, the one thing he would invest in above all else, would be his own people. So Singapore poured enormous amounts of money into education, building world-class schools and training centers. It deliberately trained its people to be highly skilled, disciplined, and ready to take on high-value, well-paid jobs. The entire country was run on one strict, powerful idea called meritocracy. The idea was simple. The best and hardest-working people would rise to the top, no matter what family or background they came from. And then Kuan Yew tackled another huge problem staring him in the face. Where would all of these people actually live? His answer was a massive, government-led program to build clean, modern, and affordable public housing for everyone. And the results were extraordinary. Today, the vast majority of Singaporeans actually own their own comfortable, modern home. Step by step, year by year, the old slums vanished completely, and a gleaming modern city rose up in their place. But here's the thing. Singapore did not just get comfortable and stop at simple factories. It kept climbing higher and higher. It moved from making cheap, simple goods up to advanced electronics, and then up again into finance, banking, and biotech. In time, Singapore became one of the biggest and most important financial centers in the entire world. The wealth of the whole world began to flow through its banks, and the little island grew richer and richer and richer. In the span of a single human generation, a doomed little island had become a gleaming global powerhouse. It is genuinely one of the most stunning national transformations the world has ever witnessed. But this incredible success came at a price, and it is a price that not everyone in the world would be willing to pay. Because for all its wealth, Singapore is also one of the most tightly controlled countries in the world. The government keeps a very firm grip on almost every single part of daily life. There are strict laws on almost everything you can imagine, and the punishments for breaking them can be surprisingly harsh. Famously, even something as small as chewing gum is heavily restricted, and you cannot just buy it freely. Littering, graffiti, and other small crimes that many countries barely notice carry shockingly severe penalties here. And when it comes to political freedom and free speech, things are far more limited than in most of the Western world. In fact, one single political party has held power for the entire life of the country, without a break. Critics call it a kind of soft, controlled, one-party system dressed up as a democracy. Really, what Singapore did was make a clear and deliberate trade. It chose order, safety, cleanliness, and wealth. And in exchange for all of that, it quietly gave up a great deal of personal freedom. Its people are among the safest and most prosperous on the planet, but they live their lives under a very strict set of rules. For a great many Singaporeans, that trade has absolutely, completely been worth it. But for critics around the world, Singapore stands as a warning about the real cost of that kind of control. And that tension, that trade-off, is the great debate sitting right at the heart of the Singapore miracle. So why should the story of one tiny island on the other side of the world actually matter to you? Because Singapore completely shattered one of the biggest and oldest myths about how nations get rich. For the longest time, people simply believed that a country got rich from what it had, from oil, from gold, from vast amounts of land. But Singapore had none of those things, not a single one, and it still became one of the very richest of them all. It proved, once and for all, that the real wealth of a nation is not actually buried under the ground. The real wealth is in good, honest government, in smart long-term planning, and in skilled, well-educated people. Look around the world and you will find countries absolutely drowning in oil that somehow stayed poor and unstable. And then there is this one tiny island that started with nothing at all and became fabulously, unbelievably rich. The real difference between them was never luck, and it was never resources. It was the choices they made. Singapore is living, breathing proof that a country really can build its own destiny, almost from nothing. From a doomed, crying little nation that nobody believed in, to one of the wealthiest places on the entire earth. And all of it, every bit, happened within the span of a single human lifetime. That, in short, is the astonishing and unlikely story of Singapore. Now, if you want to see how another country did the exact opposite, how it had every resource in the world and still wasted all of its riches, then go ahead and watch the video appearing on your screen right now. And if you genuinely love understanding how our world really works, one country at a time, then do one simple thing for me. Hit that subscribe button. A brand new country, fully explained, every single day.